let's start with correct order of conditioning a tennis player, and those are the 4 stages. And we have flexibility, stability, strength, and power. In that sense, it's very important to follow this order, and it's very important to address it in correct order, because oftentimes we have strength and power first to be trained, and this will more often lead to certain injuries. To get most out of training session, first we have to get a range of motion. So, or we're gonna restore the range of motion after injury, or we're just gonna gain range of motion, which is pretty much not the case, not the usual case with the kids, because they already naturally come with a good range of motion. But with some kids, we need to, in modern days, we need to address this little bit more. So in that case, definitely don't want to strengthen misaligned body. What I mean about misaligned, like a bad posture, which more and more we see in adults as much as kids. That's because you will not be able to achieve maximum potential, and will usually encourage injuries. So stability is important key to success, since the stable body is less likely to be injured. What means about stable body? Stable body definitely provides that solid base and allows a maximum access of later on of power. So once stability is achieved, strength can be built. Of course, strength comes before the power. We're not gonna go deeply inside the difference between strength and power, but power correlates in tennis of instant move, or the fast acceleration movements. And of course, that power is the last one to develop. Doesn't matter if you're a kid or you're adult or you're a professional tennis player. So now talking in terms of just the kids, on the strength and power, the optimal time to start resistance training is 11 to 13 years of age for girls, and 13 to 15 years of age for boys. Although the high resistance training, which is pretty much like loading the heavy weights and training to failure, should be avoided well into adolescence. So well into late teenage years, and even then should be definitely monitored very carefully. So children, adolescents, and adults beginning stage of training their strength should always start with a body weight exercises. In a case of children, they definitely should be encouraged to participate and develop the neuromuscular system, as this becomes foundation later on, which they can add the strength and power on. Examples of this kind of exercises, I will like to refer them as activities, is definitely climbing the ropes, climbing monkey bars, climbing trees, pretty much all the things that kids are not doing these days, like skateboarding and riding bicycles, roller skating, or fun one will be horseback riding. All of these things are referred in a case in direction of developing dynamic stability. So training children and adolescents should offer definitely wide variety, so it can retain their attention. what means wide variety? Of course, some exercises are very similar to others, but definitely changing, maybe changing environment, or maybe just changing the order of the training session, or just trying not to stick with the same routine. Although if we work on other stuff like a mechanical movements or technique in tennis, then sticking to routine is very important. It could be very boring as well, especially to the kids. So particular attention should be given to develop that abdominal, spinal, and back muscles. So all the muscles that pretty much kids or adults, because of their work environment these days, are not strengthening. So those are all the muscles that we lose contraction when we sit down on a flat surface like chairs or cars or car seats. These muscles are definitely essential to our postural development, to developing the right posture, and which definitely have correlation with balance and agility development. So using only sport-specific training exercises, so only just being on a tennis court and just doing tennis drills for children, adolescents, increase likelihood of sport-specific muscle imbalances. I'm gonna come back a little bit later on what muscle imbalances exactly on tennis are. So just bear there with me. So when designing that training program, it's important. In those terms, it's important not to just work on specific terms in talking about the tennis game. So all the other things, and at this point, I think this it should be a little bit more clear. Flexibility needs to be addressed first. Let me go back on that. Stability after that, then strength and power. So flexibility, stability, then I will say, of course, doing some work on a tennis court, or majority of work on a tennis court. And then later on, when they're ready, working on a strength and a power. With adults, this part that strength refers to is, like we said, kids and adults should start with the body weight, kids in a certain age. But even with adults, they should start with the body weight, except if they don't have experience of year or 2+ years continuously working on their strength. If they're less than that, they're considered in a professional literature as a beginners for the strength exercises, and they should start with the with the body weight. So let's come down. Let's go back to those muscle imbalances. Let me turn the camera around. So in the term, let's say you're right-handed, right? A very common muscle imbalance on a tennis player will be depressed shoulder on a racket side, and internally rotated arm as well. So it looks like that. And then whole torso will be turned towards non-dominant hand. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but this is pretty much how the body will look like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can imagine now, without addressing that flexibility, without balancing that body back, if you continue practicing this way, you definitely not strengthening the body the right way. You are for sure promoting these balances. There is a study that shows that on a pro tour, they will measure, I'm not sure how many tennis professionals, but there's a study that goes that their right arm, racket dominant arm, will be 3 to 5 centimeters 3 to 5 centimeters longer on the racket side, which is it's very scary. That's definitely puts a pressure on upper back, and eventually on the lower back as well. And we're gonna go now and talk about the rest, because rest is very important. Rest is very important part of a training session, of a training period. Why is that? Because at the rest time you're actually recovering and regenerating the muscle tissue. During the training process, doesn't matter if you're gonna do weightlifting, if you're gonna play tennis, if you're just gonna go running, you're breaking down the muscle tissue. So only at the rest time you bring it back. So in the terms in the terms of the rest, we can do few things to promote that rest, to use that rest period of time better. I'm going to talk about active rest, passive rest, and total rest in just a bit, but I want to give a few examples of how you can restore your muscle tissue back in a rest time. Here I put body and mind. That's going to correlate with active, passive, and total rest. But before that, we have sauna that we can use. We have jacuzzi that we can use. Cold water dips, which is like a cold showers. It's very common on a pro tour to use this. And then they have a contrast baths, which is definitely contrast between cold and hot. We have massage, and that should be performed by skilled massage therapist, or if you're skilled enough, you definitely can do with the self massage, which is pretty much like a foam rollers, or putting a tennis ball right behind a problematic spot and working that knot out. Then we have high quality foods. Not sure why I put this on the 6th place. This should be number 1 actually. And as an option is nutritional supplementation. In my own experience, this is, I don't want to say not needed. Depends where you want to go. But we're definitely not talking about professional tennis here. But any kind nutritional supplementation, in my opinion, should be taken only after the lab test shows in exactly what you're lacking of. It's a little bit dangerous taking just the multivitamins just because they're multivitamins, because in that case you might be making disbalance in your body, one mineral versus other mineral, which they correlate and they work and function only in a certain ratios. And then I have here at number 7, crossed over, it's anabolic steroids. Like I said, we don't talk about professional sport right now, but that's one more option that is unfortunately used. I definitely don't encourage them, but just for you to see and to know. So when we go to rest recommendations, we have 3 types of rest. We have active rest, passive rest, and total rest. Active rest is the one when tennis players performs in tennis environment, but is greatly reduced in intensity. So what that means if you're trained and you can handle something for, let's say, 3 hours of a training session, now you will go for 2.5. So you take that half an hour off to recover. Your body will definitely feel it. Let's say on the guy who runs 5,000 meters, and he has certain time on the 5,000 meters. Now he will definitely run 2-3 minutes below that time, so he doesn't stress his body on a high intensity level. Like I said, for the tennis, if you're used to play 3 sets, maybe just go out and play 2 sets that day. Then we have a passive rest, which is primary activity of tennis when training is performing alternated means. Good example of that is definitely the shadow tennis, or what I like to refer as a shadow swings. And good option for the kids will be doing other sports like swimming is definitely a good option. So you will still have some training session going, but it will be completely in different, let's say, different sports environment, or different environment at all, because dry swinging and shadow swings are definitely done in a terms of no pressure. So that's that part of, if you look at the text, of the mind rest, which is very, very important as well. And then of course we come to the total rest, which is complete avoidance of any kind of exercises. And in that total rest, sleep falls in as well. And we will definitely use this mostly before tournaments, or if we come across few more things that I'm gonna talk about in a further segment, and that's how to recognize when the rest is needed. So in order to recognize that, I mean, we are all guilty of we all suffer from this symptom. One of the main reasons I found is it's a fear. So fear of missing on something, fear of not improving on a certain pace, fear of dropping on performance, even fear of being considered as a lazy. All of these things will fog out our judgments. So what important things is to be honest to yourself, or to have a professional on the side who can recognize the next in the next segment what I'm going to talk about, and those are signals of overtraining. And when we have overtraining, it's definitely important. I mean, when we overtrain ourselves, it's definitely important to take some rest. So what we have here is poor performance, and I put it as continuous poor performance. I will not be afraid of one time per performance, maybe twice per poor performance. We all have days when you wake up on your left foot, and no matter what you do, ball is not listening. You hit the ball and maybe goes few inches out, maybe goes right in the net, few inches below the net level. That won't worry me if it's happening only once or 1 or 2 days. But if it's if it's 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, there's definitely something is going on. Then we come to the point where we need increased warm-up time. In that case, again, has to be continuous. So let's say you need 15 minutes to warm up and get in your rhythm, get in your timing. And next day you show up, you need 20 minutes. Next day you show up, you again need those 20 minutes. Next time you come to practice, now you need 25 or 30 minutes. That's definitely alarming. So something is happening. So you're overtrained. You could be overtrained physically or mentally. Either one will definitely need the rest time. We go on the next one, and that's showing up sleepy on your practices or poor sleeping quality. So what means showing up sleepy? Sometimes you don't sleep well. It's one-time occasion. But if you show up 2-3 times and you're sleepy, but you know you slept well, that's indication. If you have a poor sleeping quality, that's one more indication, one more good indication as well. You might not be overtrained. So this refers to adults. You might not be overtrained because of the tennis, but something is happening in your private life, your work, you're busy with certain things. It's definitely going to show on your performance on a tennis court. And then in that case, you will not train the same intensity. You will definitely go back to active rest and train with a little bit less intensity and see how that goes. If that doesn't help, then drop down to passive rest. The next one, we have accumulation of injuries or prolonged recovery from injury. So if they start piling up, now your wrist hurts, now it's shoulder, now you feel it in your hip, but the wrist is not gone yet, the pain in the wrist is not gone yet, that means the body is not recovering. So something has to be addressed. And in that case, I will definitely look for the cure in total rest, or the worst, I mean, maybe passive rest. But if injuries are accumulating, I will definitely go for a total rest. The next one, we have drop in the body weight. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We have drop in a body weight or poor appetite. Again, drop in a body weight should be recognizable. It's not I lost a few pounds. It's something that is just alarming. 5+ pounds within 1 week. Or poor appetite. That means you're just not eating enough to regenerate your muscles. That poor appetite, again, can come because of overtraining on a tennis court, or it can come because other factors in your private life. Next one that we have is definitely something that you guys can keep a track at home, and that's elevated morning heart rate. So you take first thing in the morning after your cup of water or whatever you do, you take your morning heart rate, write it down, next morning again, and then you can see if there is elevated heart rate. Of course, few beats is not going to be an issue, but if you have 4 or 5 plus beats in per minute differences, that's definitely the good indication that something's going on. Next one we have is lack of motivation. Lack of motivation, not in the terms of competing, which that one can be as well, but lack of motivation of practicing, of doing certain practicing. Now, if that lack of motivation is, hey, I don't want to do cross courts today, just simple example, but I would like to do down the line shots. That's not quite lack of motivation. That's pretty much just choosing what you want to do. Of course, we can go into details why not doing cross courts when you need them is not such a good thing, but just to define what lack of motivation is. So it will be completely okay. I don't want to do anything today, even if you feel physically ready. Then we have antisocialism or shift from normal personality. Normal personality, not talking in the terms of someone being nice or not nice, but your usual personality. So if something is shifting, there is definitely indication of overtraining, or again, could be anything in your private life that is definitely gonna again affect your training session, because you don't come you don't come to tennis court to rest, or you might look for the break from your work. For adults, for instance, or for the kids, it's just a switch from the homework homeworks or the school stuff. But you don't come physically to rest on a tennis court. So that's definitely, if anything shifts on that side, you will not be able to give 100% of yourself on the training session. And there is no point doing training session, except if you're not gonna do now active rest, so less intensity, and see if that works. If that doesn't work, again, go back on a passive rest, and then if total rest is needed, we'll go for total rest. And on the last one is definitely not on the interest for the kids, but for the adults is loss of libido. Normal thing, body response when it's under distress. This is a normal response in a human being, the first thing to go away, because the body is going to that mode called fight or flight. So you're under certain type of stress, and you're going to so-called catabolic stage of environment. And now, no matter what you do, you're gonna stay there. So in this case, I will say total rest is needed for our adult tennis players. And with this thing, we are done. That will be all. I tried to put in a simple form. Of course, next time we'll definitely go a little bit deeper with certain aspects of it, and try to explain certain things in a more example ways. And now, if anyone has any question, go ahead. You can ask anything.